Hello, everyone. This is Under the Mayo. I'm here talking to the developer of one of my favorite games of 2022, Shadow Warrior 3. I have here the director, Kuba Opoń. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, great. Nice to meet you, and nice to meet you all. Uh,
Yeah, we've been trying to put this together, like you said, for like 6 months or so. Things just kept on coming up, and then we decided to push it back a little bit because you guys had something cooking. I didn't know what you were doing, but I knew you were doing something for Shadow Warrior 3, and so we pushed this back until February, and now here we are. This is great.
yeah, from let's say a planned update, we've it kind of grew into something more than that, which we're gonna cover in a minute.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get into anything with a new update, this is also not just about you, but also about the game. So, could you introduce yourself and what's your history in the industry?
I'm Kuba Opoń. In Shadow Warrior 3 at Flying Wild Hawk, my role is being game director. So that was actually my first game that I've on that position. So it was a journey itself. But getting where I started, so I work in the game industry for almost 14 years now. I started in a company called Bluebird Team from Krakow,
Blue,
Poland,
wait,
and
wait, Bloober team of the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake?
exactly that one. But it was totally different company at that point. We were making small games for consoles like DS and
Right.
iPhones and things like that. So there was this. Right now, they are famous from making horrors. When I was there, the horrors were was the dream.
Okay.
So I never experienced that part of their development and growing to this massive, studio that they are right now. It was a very small startup back then, like
Yeah.
15 people or something like that.
All right.
So yeah, very humble beginnings there. So I've worked there as a programmer on the gameplay side of games, different games, some strategy, even music game at some point. And worked there for 3.5 years. And basically, then I moved to Warsaw and started to work at Flying Wild Hawk, where I'm currently still. So it's more than 10 years now at Hawks, and this been a blast. So I started here uh, basically a couple of months after the development of the first Shadow Warrior started. I was
Oh, you mean
the
like Shadow Warrior 2013?
Oh, obviously, yes,
Okay.
the Flying Wild Hog version, the 2013. So I started in 2012, and work on Shadow Warrior 2013 as a AI programmer, working mostly on the boss fights.
Hmm.
And then we've moved to Shadow Warrior 2, and that was my um, transition into eventually into leadership role on the gameplay team. So I was still responsible for AI programming, but this time on the general enemy side and their behaviors. But also I got promoted to lead gameplay programmer. Then we had a little break from Shadow Warrior. We've been doing a couple of things like Hard Reset Redux, which was a console version of our first title, which I didn't work originally. I only worked on the Redux version, but it was a complete overhaul. So I also had a chance to touch everything there in that game on the again coding AI side, which also was a nice experience, interesting one. Um, and then we had some projects that I cannot discuss that were never released, but eventually we've end up working with Devolver Digital again with Shadow Warrior 3,
Yeah.
where I was appointed game director for the you know for the newest installment. So
When did
that's
you get that position?
So previously, I was project lead on those unannounced things that we were searching, but for smaller team, and and starting on Shadow Warrior 3 is basically a couple months after the initial development started, initial prototyping, let's say. It was May 2019 when I joined with a group of people to the team that was working on the first prototype, basically building the team from there and starting to working on the game further until the release last year.
Okay. When did 2019? Is that when that's when everyone started talking about what they wanted to do with the Shadow Warrior 3, or had it been an idea that was floating around for a little longer?
So the idea was floating around way longer. I would say that when we released the Shadow Warrior 2, it was 2016, so probably a little bit after. But we had some other options that we were exploring, and then there was the Flying Wild Hog. Our studio was acquired by Supernova Capital, which was a company created by Paul Wedgwood, former Splash Damage founder of Splash Damage. So we've been under their wings, and that's kind of like after we completed that, the business side of transaction of acquiring of changing, moving it under their wings, then we could start new deals and sign Shadow Warrior 3. So we've definitely been talking about it earlier, so in 2018 for sure. But we basically started when I joined the official production, right, in May 2019. There was like 3 or 4 months of prototyping earlier with very small team, like 6 people total. But this is another story. Basically, we've always had our own engine until Shadow Warrior 2. It was called Roadhog, but times are changing. We needed to grow. We needed to hire new talent, and it's very hard to hire people to your own, custom tech.
Yeah.
So we also switched to Unreal. That's one thing is a business decision. Other thing is basically that it is the talent pool there of people that could jump in and help instantly.
Yeah.
Unreal also offers, out of the box, a lot of things that we needed to develop on our own, which means finding great engine programmers, and they are very rare, always. So it's a tough competitive space to be creating your own engine. It was fun. It worked for us for several years, but in this current state of the market, Unreal is the way to go. So
Right.
we had to do it.
Yeah, it helps you bring in more people. Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that much. Like that's what people are learning, and so you want to bring in new people to help you work on your game. And what are they going to know? They're going to know Unreal, and instead of having to sit them down and learn a whole new game engine for months, you could just put them right to work.
Exactly. And there's the documentation, the tools, something that you never have at the quality you would like to when you're also working on the game, trying to build the engine underneath it, right? So it's very, let's say, hard to understand. It literally takes months, as you said.
Yeah.
And why I bring it, because we started basically by trying to re-implement Shadow Warrior 2 core movement and mechanics on in the Unreal Engine 4. So that was the first prototyping that happened. So we've created basically, just moveset with dash, with shotgun, with 2 enemies, I believe, as far as I remember the first demo, and it was and the katana, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was like a test drive for us, how fast we can have the same experience that we have in Shadow Warrior 2 on the, let's say, 3Cs, the player feel, and then how to move from there, right?
And how hard was that, making that transition to Unreal?
That part, this is the this is the trap of prototyping. It was really super fast, like 3 months, and we have we thought we have a lot of core systems like weapons, shotguns, Uzi, slide, double jumps, dashes, enemies, with a couple of people and just 3 months. But the difference between a prototype and finished product is just huge. So it felt super rapid, like 3 months or something like that, and we had it. But then the real work starts: how to
Yeah.
make a proper sequel and how to do it properly in every way. That's a totally different, um, totally different story.
Well, the game looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
I don't know so much about the difference between all the different game engines. It's just not my focus. But it has a really unique look and feel. So whatever difficulties or hesitations you might have had of switching to the Unreal Engine, I mean, you guys really pulled it off. You made something really unique and in an engine that that you weren't expecting to eventually end up using, and it worked out in the end.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super happy to hear that. Eventually, is about the artist, right? It's not about the tools. Obviously, you need to understand the tools to create
Yeah.
that. Especially in games, you need to create that. Working fast, rapid. But yeah, I'm also really super happy with the art direction and this. For me, this is one of the the brightest elements of the game. It was something I always wanted to be, like, to have its own style in the form
Yeah.
like you see on screen, and you know what game this is.
Totally. I
Um,
was replaying it after you guys sent me the update, and because I haven't played it in 6 months or so, and I hopped back in, and my save was in the jungle level, going into the dragon, and I was just like, wow, this game looks so good. Like there's so much cool art direction. Every level looks totally different, but it all works in the same world. I don't know. Your artist did a great job on that.
yeah, thank you again. I'm super proud of the team. They're great.
Yeah.
It's an honor working with such a great artist. This is actually something that kind of drags me into that industry, and I'm super happy of working on that position, because when I was only in programming, I was always drawn to the artists, to working with them, to create something. That's why the enemy's still working with animators and and character modelers and everyone. But it's just great. I really like that environment of cooperation, of just the vibe of cooperation on so many different just crafts, right? And
Yeah.
from very strict, like, engine math, like approach to artists, musicians. This is awesome stuff.
The AI especially. I mean, I guess it doesn't surprise me that you come from AI programming, because the AI, not only are they all really unique in their behaviors, but they're all so unique in the way that they look. Like every monster is just like its own thing, right? I've never seen anything like the Slinky, what is it, Slinky Jaku or whatever it is.
Thank you, Jacko. Yeah.
God, that guy makes me so angry when he just runs away laughing at me. And then the Hattori, I think the Hattoris are great, because they kind of take what some Doom Eternal players take issue with the Marauder, and the way you iterate on that is that, like, it's not that he's invulnerable until you wait for him to do something. It's that he's got those three orbs on him, and you have to take those orbs down, and now's your chance to go in and get him, and now you can stun him with the saw blades. So I don't know. I think you guys did a really good job on your AI.
Again, really happy to hear that. That's you actually picked my two favorite ones as
Yeah,
well.
awesome. Yeah, they're
uh,
great.
these are my go-to, especially for that unique design choices. I would say this is something that makes the difference, right? Because overall you run and shoot things, right? But here it's kind of like twisting the idea. You either need to get through the shield, let's say, of the Hattori, And the Slinky is, yeah, it's this one is really my favorite in that regard. That you always you're the one that chases them, right?
Hmm.
He's running away from you. It's always opposite. Like the enemies are pushing you, and you're trying to get to the better position. Not the opposite. So chasing the funny guy that makes that laughs at you, for me was like super interesting thing. And also like thinking of the Shadow Warrior, we really wanted to have the comedic element that we felt we never delivered in the gameplay.
Okay.
So on that side, like how to create gameplay that is funny, right? To some extent, obviously. You said that it pisses you, right? But I believe like he's making laugh out of the players, and that you need to slide or jump over, the traps that he's
Hmm.
leaving behind. It's something that for me at least is I'd say that it's kind of like funny to look at from the side, and and that's why I think it's so different and memorable, which is what we always want to do, right? We would like to have those cast of super memorable characters, and if that's the gameplay creature, not the NPC, the one that you experience through the just cutscene, for me it's even bigger win.
I think it's time you make a spin-off game where you play as the Slinky. Can you do that? Can you make a 2D platformer where you play as the Slinky?
Sure. So that sounds like a good challenge.
So you started talking about the early development of Shadow Warrior 3, and there are some significant differences in the style of game from Shadow Warrior 2 to 3. How did those changes come about? How did you end up changing direction so drastically in certain aspects?
When you take a look at the franchise, I mean the part that we've Flying with Hawk developed, so starting 2013, there's a similar difference between the second and the first one as well, right? The first one is, let's say, classical shooter, linear shooter in that regard, and the second one is more looter shooter with randomization of locations with the hub and map, which reminds more of a Borderlands, let's say.
Right.
So this is, I would say, um, I think this is just us, the Flying Wild Hawk, that we never want to do same thing
Okay.
again. So we wanted to creatively, express ourselves. But also we wanted to kind of slightly get back to the direction of the first, but obviously we were inspired by every other thing, and it isn't similar to the first one in that regard, right? It's something that stands on its own, I would say. So one thing is the creativity here, and we wanted to express that with working with Devolver Digital. They always allowed us to experiment, which is super fun. I like that indie vibe in that regard, that you really can deliver something different.
Yeah.
Um, and it was very pleasant, experience to have that option. Um, the other thing I would say also is that this is actually a game created by uh, part of the old, let's say, core team of Shadow Warrior, but again, the transition and that growth of the studio that happened basically allowed for influx of a lot of new talent, and I feel like those people also express themselves in the way of how the game looks, how the game plays, how the game sounds.
Okay.
Uh, so these are, this team was fresh, right? We had the guidance for them, but new people delivered something fresh in that manner. So I also was really uh, amazed how the team performs and what they can deliver and how interesting things we can get there.
I did a video late last year on Doom Eternal clones, and I put your game in there as one of the games that made me feel like Doom Eternal's gameplay loop was starting to appear in other shooters finally, and I'm curious if you could elaborate on how much of an influence that maybe Doom 2016 had been on your direction, and Doom 20 and Doom Eternal on the gameplay loop. To what degree were those games influences, or were you just guys on the same track as more of a coincidence?
Um, I don't want to say that we weren't influenced. I saw the comparisons to Doom Eternal, but looking at the timeline, how the games were released, Doom Eternal was like year before, but it was already, we made basically every key decision at this point. So some comparisons to Doom Eternal, from my perspective, is kind of like, okay, yes, it is similar. I can see that. But and yes, we were looking more into Doom 2016, which I loved as well. So definitely there is some things taken from that franchise. But also I would like to point out that me playing Doom Eternal, especially right now, I see where it came from as well, and I feel like there's, and I see. Obviously, I cannot guess what were the inspiration. I can just guess what were the inspiration. But for me, for example, my formative, shooter years were in Quake 3 Arena,
Yes.
and I always wanted to create a game of that speed and maneuverability.
Great.
I feel that if you know that, then you can see it through Shadow Warrior 3. And I would say that Doom Eternal kind of has the same
Totally.
goal, So definitely it's something I may like Doom in that direction, right? But it wasn't because of Doom, right? It was because of something that at least for me was a formative experience way earlier, when I was like 16 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, because it's not that Doom Eternal never necessarily invented all this stuff. It's like this stuff comes from somewhere, and they're trying to recapture that old sort of, like you said, that old kind of Quake 3 vibe, and so I've always been curious as to the games that are coming out now, like. Did Doom Eternal give them the confidence to do what they had wanted to, or did it make them think of something new, or did they just happen to be going the same direction? So it's interesting to hear that you have those old roots like Quake 3, and so really you guys were both trying to recreate something that you loved from that era of gaming. And it's not that I've never thought that it was you guys saw Doom Eternal and then decided to completely change direction. I've never thought that, but it is very interesting to hear that that you were already kind of going in that direction when that game came out, and it must have at least given you guys some confidence as to the direction you were going in, to see that a game like that was so well received.
Exactly. For me, it's actually a good thing of as a confirmation that your direction is right. And again, getting back to that, inspiration, or just sometimes stealing ideas. Definitely, we liked what Doom and previous one, that 2016, is doing about the resources. And this made us kind of like realize that we could have something similar in terms of like Katana acquiring, one resource, and the weapons acquiring the other, and this kind of loop with the finishers kind of was inspired by that. But it's something you kind of borrow and then trying to figure out your design on that. The other thing is, for example, like finishers, and we always didn't want to like copy things, right? We wanted to borrow and either improve or just adapt to our needs. That's why the katana plays a big role in restoring ammunition,
Yeah.
for example, and has a purpose now that it lacked in previous installments on that regard, at least, on the resource side. And the second thing, sorry, lost my thought here. The finishers for
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I remember discussions about finishers in 2013, right? They are very similar in first person, and when you shoot demons in the face and kill them with your bare hands in Doom and in Shadow Warrior, it may look similar. You end up kind of killing similar creatures, but we wanted to have a twist. That was our what's unique about that, how we can utilize them by just not being the nice reward in form of animation, what you can get out of it. So this is kind of like inspiration, how to take finishers to another level, right? How to make them count differently.
Yeah, because they're not glory kills. They're insta kills. Right? You don't. It's not that you shoot them, wear them down, and then get the animation. No, you run up to something that you need to take out now, and you get an insta kill from it, and then you can use their weapon. It's a really interesting spin on it, and I think it works really well in the gameplay flow.
That's actually.
I was going to say it's an interesting decision on very hard difficulties, whether you're going to use 2 bars to take out one of the larger enemies, like the guy that's always throwing those exploding eggs all over the place, or like the chef, right? Whether you're going to take out the chef, or if you're going to have to use it on one of the small fodder enemies, which I never want to do, but sometimes I got to do it, or I'm going to die. And so I really like the sense of pressure around the whole like 3 orb system for different finishers.
So that's a funny thing about that I think on the design side it took us the longest. The other funny thing is that the initial idea was very similar to what we have at the end, but we did a first full circle, having to wear them down, having the orange blinking at some point, and so on, and we couldn't decide how to make it work. It was very tough to balance, to have that actually that feeling that you described, that experience that you described, that you have to choose, that you have to plan, that it's a strategic choice. We were fighting with that concept a lot, how to make it work.
It's great because there's no right answer. It's not like in many other games it would be like, oh well, the best thing to do is to always save up all 3 and then use it on the biggest guy. It's like, well, no, that's not always the best thing, because you're not invulnerable while you use the big 2-barreled gun guy, the big fat guy, the toxic guy. Like, yeah, his finisher weapon is amazing, and it lasts a long time. You can kill a bunch of enemies, but you also don't move very fast, and you take damage, and enemies are not dropping health items, so you can get yourself killed by using that weapon. So sometimes the best thing to do is to just grab a small guy and use his head as a freeze bomb, and then save the rest of your orbs. There's a really cool risk-reward aspect to the decision making that always keeps me thinking about how I'm going to use it.
Yeah, actually, I felt like super. Let's say, I felt like we are super smart when we understood that the small enemies at the beginning are, doing the finishers on them is cool, give you something, but actually and then you go through the game, you pick bigger weapons, so you feel like they're better. But at the end, the small guys can provide you the more important upgrades. They are more important and better the tougher the fight is, right? So this was kind of like something I was really happy with. It was interesting to work on that design and how to balance it.
I was also curious, when did you guys decide to implement the grappling hook and the way that it works?
Oh, the grappling hook was there when I arrived to the pre-existing prototype. It was already there because and it was very. Let's say that work on the first prototype wasn't really planned as exploring, where Shadow Warrior 3 could go. But the guys were super fast with the prototyping and everything, and the grapple hook is like one of those things you see in the game since 20 years or 30 years, and they just implemented it like very first. Just someone has that idea. I don't even remember who that was, but let's just do it. And we start playing with that, and we thought, yeah, that may be our thing, right? That no one has. And in that regard, again, getting back to similarities to Doom, like for us it was first the traversal tool.
Yeah.
Then we thought how to utilize that in combat. So it was more about having the the way for the platforming to shine there in the game.
It can be a real lifesaver when you're in one of those big fights and you see like a group of 3 small guys, and then you shoot a grenade and kill 2 of them, and then grappling hook to the other one, just so you can get over there quickly and get the resources. It's on high difficulties. It can really save your life, but it can also really get you killed because there's that long wind up to it where it feels like you're like floating in air for a second before you start swinging. I wanted to ask how did that decision come about for it to not be something that was so instant to where there's like this long wind up before you start your swing?
That's interesting. This is again something that probably is a choice. I don't remember like every choice we've made and why,
sure.
but it's basically thousands of different small choices, right? That ends up being what you're playing right now. But this wind up in the air is basically something to help us during the traversal moments. So and I remember also cutting that and trying to make that shorter at some point. So it was a tough decision to make between something that helps you orient in the sections in between combat, and then something that helps you in the combat. So maybe the shift to the, let's say, instant would help you in the combat spaces, but probably would mess up a bit the or increase the difficulty in the areas where you just travel from from one place to another. And this is also let's say part of the stylization and animation and let's say a cinematic experience here and there, right? That you try to pull. It's kind of like your superhero doing something in the air. He stops for a moment and then swings further, right? So it's also a stylization in that form.
Yeah, it looks cool, and I could see how it being instant could break combat because there's no cooldown, right? You could just use it over and over and over again. You'd have to rebalance it that way too.
Yeah, that as well, but I'm mostly referring to that starting moment. But yeah, it's a choice, one of the choices. It kind of influences so many things that it's hard to balance it super perfectly every time. But still, I feel like, as you said, it's kind of it is useful when you figure this out on higher difficulties. It starts to you start to see it as a useful item on for the like expert players, right?
Especially in some of the arena designs where those key grapple hook points are. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the arena design. You have all the wall running sections that have resources on them, and I just thought that was really smart, not to just have a way to wall run around the arena, but to actually put a resource there, like a health pickup on there, that makes people want to wall run on it because they need that resource. And so you're actually getting people to do stylish things, having them wall run around and grappling hook around because they need to get to the resource. I thought that was really smart.
Yeah, that was, I think, coming from our level designers, because they also like struggle a lot because with the wall runs in the arenas. That was a puzzle on its own, how to use them, because it was always maybe more stylish but less efficient to the point that you could grapple to the enemy or just double jump and dash and you're super agile. So the wall runs weren't the first choice.
Put a health pickup on there.
That was some aha moment from one of the level designers, and and now they are everywhere and it works. And you feel stylish, and you feel that this has a point. So I really like those small, cool ideas that the team came up with. To feel. That the idea was to feel like a ninja, right? So now you basically are a ninja, and in that matter, also I like that there's a difference between this game and other games.
Yeah,
that there is this vibe of agility, not just pure, brutality, and
sure.
you're not a tank, right? You're a ninja, and that's what we wanted the people to feel.
I feel that a lot more in the second survival mode. We'll get to the definitive edition soon enough, but in the second survival map, there's that big ass jump pad in the middle, and I feel a lot more agile in that space because I spend a lot more time in the air just because of that central jump pad. That was a really nice addition.
So yeah, looking at that arena and that jump at that's Quake 3, right?
Yeah, totally.
uh,
Yeah, I was surprised there weren't more of it because in the final level of the campaign, you've got those like fleshy jump pads in when you're inside the dragon, and I was surprised that you hadn't seen it, jump pads in any other space in the game outside of that. And there are no jump pads in combat spaces either. Like there's only platforming sections. And so it's nice to see that you guys are implementing a jump pad in an actual combat space. It really makes things interesting.
yeah, from the point of view of creating the campaign, we wanted to have something fresh at the end, right? To not get bored. So we kind of held the introduction of things like that, and I wanted to have something new, even if that's just like jump pad. Feels like super simple thing, but it can change the arenas a lot. So for the campaign, that made sense from us because we wanted to give players a new toy. But yes, the game ends there, right after that last mission with the jump pad. So looking at the new arenas, how to utilize everything we have in kind of like different order, gives us more tools, and we wanted to use everything we've got.
What kind of problems did you face, like in as you were developing the game? Was there anything that just wasn't working and that maybe you had to cut out, or something you wish you could have done but you didn't do it?
So
A
we've
troublesome AI or anything like
yeah
that?
yeah yeah we've mentioned things that eventually went well, right?
Yeah.
Like for example the resource system for the finisher, but it took a big circle to get there, and there are things that they don't get to that point when it clicks, and there's a lot of things that we cut and we experiment and remove. There were some enemy prototypes that were kept to very simple stage when we removed them. Um, and there was so like a box basically moving around, but something didn't work there. But also, yeah, we had one idea for enemy that I think if we would have more time, we could find a way to for that enemy to get through the game. But the time is always there's always not enough time, and you rather polish things better rather than squeeze some more content that may be broken. Um, so yeah, enemies are the one example. But whenever you develop a game like that, you do tons of like the different level layouts, ideas, smaller, not like complete levels. So there was a lot to. We wanted to actually prototype a lot during this production cycle, and so we could have more to choose from. So in that regard, there was a lot of things that we scrapped early. It was like this very rapid process of creating multiple simple maps, different enemy types, behaviors, small, big, things. Um, and on the, let's say, the high level side of the combat, there was this one system uh, that that for us I think was um, mm, the most difficult one to, because it at the beginning of the production we had the idea that we would like to do more of a, let's say, of an arcade scoring system, something similar that we have in the in the survival mode, but we wanted to have it for the whole campaign. But we felt that it breaks the immersion, that it's unpredictable, and and we couldn't figure out how to do it. So we end up with something more traditional in that regard. So there's no, DMC style
Right.
counter that rates you as you go through the game.
Sure.
Because of many reasons.
Well,
It's
like if you
difficult.
if you do that, then your game needs to be dedicated to that system. You don't want to just tack it on and like, oh, here's a scoring system. Like you have to go all the way.
Exactly. So in that regard, the arenas were more predictable and more deterministic, I would say. That's why the scoring system works there. But
Mm.
the plans for the campaign were way bigger, but we couldn't figure it out. It was, let's say, it was removed relatively early in the production after a couple of months, but still, you remember things like that. That there was this awesome idea, but we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. On the development topic, I mean, I gotta ask, like, how hard were you guys hit by COVID? Because I mean, you guys said that you were prototyping what 2019, and so production's really gearing up in 2020, and then the whole world shuts down for 2 years, and your game comes out in March 2022. Basically, you had a full 2 year development period under lockdown, and could you talk about like how that impacted you guys? How did that change the scope of your game? I mean, because when the game came out, I mean, there was criticism the game was too short, and I think that saying the game is too short is only part of the story. I think that you guys have a campaign experience and gameplay loop that by the end of it I feel satisfied. Like I don't like I'm okay with Shadow Warrior 3 not being a 15-hour game or even a 10-hour game because I like the replayability it has. And I think with the definitive edition, it makes it a better value for sure. But I imagine that the original idea of the game was for it to be longer and to have more. So how were you guys affected?
Um, so there's it's gonna be a longer answer because COVID definitely affected us and everyone else a lot. Like that's for sure, and I would say that it didn't affect the scope of the game. That's a choice. That's the other thing. That's why it affected the production time.
Okay.
Like it went longer than we anticipated, and definitely, while we had a year of working together in the office, uh, we actually moved to a nicer office for a month, and then a lockdown happened, and we
Oh
never
God.
and we never got back there as a team. So we still have like super fresh office after 2 years. That looks awesome, and it's kind of empty, which is super sad. Um, and but this creates something that isn't reversible. So we had to adapt, and we've adapted. It was, frankly speaking, at first, at least for some, it was interestingly um, efficient to work from home.
Hmm.
You kind of get your time for travel to office and back. You still know your team directly because it's just first couple of months. So you save some time. You're not distracted by casual conversation and so on. But as the time went by, it felt worse. I would say. At least that's my experience. There are obviously so many people with totally different experiences, but overall, I felt like it's harder to keep the team culture.
Yeah.
You hire a lot of new people. It's hard to get to know them better, and if you need to, you know, have a brainstorming session with them, it's way better if you have a good relationship with them when you understand each other and you kind of can bounce off ideas really quickly. So this was difficult to understand all those changes. We did everything we could as a company to try to somehow approach those different problems. We try to support each other to kind of, when there were moments of let's say of lesser danger. We saw each other, but in smaller groups. So yeah, it was difficult. So I feel like it affected the efficiency overall, even though the first months were super rapid. But it was harder to put the final touches on the product, for sure. That always works better when you have people like I feel, at least from my experience, together in the office, focusing on this and that in a very rapid way. So online it's a bit harder to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, this got to be especially frustrating as the director, because you want to be able to just walk over to the programmer's desk, and if he wants to show you something, then you can just sit down at his desk and feel it out for yourself. But when you're working from home, like he's got to send you a new build of the game. Like that's kind of really frustrating.
Yeah, there's the delay just imposed by working remotely. It's not that there weren't companies that worked in a remote way from the beginning, delivering great games.
Yeah.
I remember that the developers behind Ori are the ones that always said that they are online, remote company, and it was just a concept at that at that time, right? But now everyone is, to some extent.
Yeah, people are just now getting back.
But looking at the, even like we are working still remotely. People like that option, something changed. So in Poland, I see like multiple companies just doing the either hybrid or fully remote. There's rarely a company that people just got back to the office full time.
Yeah, the whole dynamic has shifted in a way.
So basically, we have to adjust to that format and just learn to live with it and work within that conditions.
There was one more question about the original game before the definitive edition that I wanted to ask. Whose idea was it to make the loading screen where you cover your eyes on the dragon? That is just brilliant. Like, how do you hide the fact that we need to load something? Why don't we just have the character cover his eyes? That's brilliant. Who came up with that? How did that come about?
Yeah, that's. I think that is either. Sorry, I won't be giving you names.
Okay.
Because I don't want to miss someone. But either was that, because I don't know if that was a cinematic team idea or our gameplay animator. I think it was our lead gameplay, but again, I don't want to. I don't want to omit someone to credit this, but I also remember that, like, this is brilliant.
Did you just have the problem where you just had a point where you're like, damn it, like we can't load all this stuff at the same time, what do we do? And then it just came from that?
Yeah, it's basically, it's not even, I'm not sure if that was a loading issue or that flight is so long that it was boring. We need to teleport the player further.
Oh.
I think that was the case, but or something like that. But still, yeah, that's I love those small, again, just brilliant thoughts and ideas that.
That's super.
So
good.
and it's funny, and it solves the technical problem. It giving us again the comedy vibe.
Yeah.
And getting back to that, game length. Just wanted to because I wanted to have that the way to explain that. Like, this was our assumption from the start, to hit around 6 hours. Obviously, if you play super great, you can half it.
Yeah.
That's another thing. But we wanted to create a shorter game because we didn't. This still isn't. It wasn't a team of of people to. We had our idea to create like AAA quality on the visual side and everything, but also we wanted to not hit a problem of being bored, that it became repetitive. And but my personal favorite campaign was Titanfall 2 single player campaign.
About 6 hours, right?
This is kind of like this was kind of like similar idea that we could have it, but also yes, we read the comments that about that, and that's also why the definitive edition and those that arena modes that we've created for it. So this is kind of like trying to answer that demand of more playtime, of more time with Wang.
Well, let's get into that. When did you decide that the definitive edition in survival mode was something that you definitely wanted to do?
So I think right after after the release, we always had a plan to create next gen update as the definitive edition. The big chunk of it is the true next gen update for PS5 and Xbox Series platforms. So that's the biggest thing to create here, alongside the part of the additional arenas. And yeah, those basically reading those comments made us think, yeah, we need to add some more gameplay time. So it was like basically we knew that right away, that we need to add something in the similar fashion. But we took some time there because we definitely wanted to solve other pending issues, or just make the game better and listen to community and work with them. We knew that creating a mode with like arenas and then stuff and waves that will take some time.
Yeah.
So we wanted to focus first on checking the difficulties, rebalancing it, all the things that happened in the first 2 or 3 months, to really have to work on the replayability while doing stuff that was more efficient to deliver on a constant rate. So with that in mind, then we took a pause to create the next gen version and the arenas, and now it's there, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, you guys did a great job at responding in those first couple months, with the rebalancing, the hardcore mode, the hero mode, which was great. You guys have the level select now. You responded really quickly and made those fixes, and the game just got so much better really quickly. And I just want to commend you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the one thing that should be, I would say, in the base game from the start is that chapter select. That this is actually something that we should have earlier, but I'm happy that it was visible that we care about the product, about the game, and we wanted to make up for the issues that people have. So I hope we solved the most the problematic ones as soon as possible, so we could focus on that on the content of the next content of the game.
I haven't kept up with all the updates over the past months, but when I was playing survival mode and playing the campaign, I noticed that it was just running better. Has there been PC performance updates? Because I'm playing at 1440p at like 90 frames a second, and I don't get that with most games, and I didn't used to get that with your game. So, have you guys been putting an effort into optimization as well with this update?
Every time, with every update, we've tried to fix more and find more elements. It's more difficult as you get to to the bottom of things, to find new ways.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly speaking, creating such a mode like arenas gave us another reason to figure this out, how to squeeze more enemies on the screen.
Yeah.
So while trying to make that work, that idea, we also kind of fixed, make the campaign better in that regard, and achieved just better performance overall. So yes, there are a ton of fixes.
Great.
for the performance as well.
Yeah, it's running really well. I think the only time I have any kind of issues is when there's like 20 of those suicide exploder guys, and then the frame rate kind of drops because of all the particle effects. Those guys can be hell on the graphics card, I think. But other than that, things are just really. I mean, with most games that are coming out over the past year or so, or even some older games, like the optimization is always an issue. When I play Prey from 2017, I gotta play it at 1080p. But then on the opposite end, you have something like Doom Eternal, which is just like so insanely optimized that I'm getting 120 frames per second at 1440p. And so playing Shadow Warrior 3 now and being able to play at 1440p on my 1440p monitor at 90 frames a second is really nice. So yeah, good job on the optimization. The game's in a really nice place. And I think people are going to notice that, because there's going to be people coming back to this game who haven't played it in a year, right? And they're going to notice the difference.
Yeah, I would love people to get back, those who wanted more. I hope they will be satisfied. And yes, thank you on behalf of the gameplay programmers and engine programmers that did this awesome job with squeezing the every frame that they could from it. That was also an effort, and I'm really thankful that I'm really able to work with such a talented group. And that also comes to the discussion, your own engine or custom engine. So
yeah.
This is something you have to then understand really well to do.
We'll buy them a nice Polish beer and say it's from me and say good job, because the game's running really good. I wanted
definitely, when I finally have the chance to see them again.
Oh, yeah.
Not through the screens. Yeah, but right now we are doing that from time to time with the whole team. It's
good.
Different now.
So that's good to hear.
Good. Yeah.
With survival mode, people are going to see that it's like every round you get to pick between 3 items. How did you decide on that form? There's a lot of ways to do horde modes and survival modes. How did you decide on this whole, like, every round you get to pick between 3 items thing?
So, from high level perspective, we had the goals of definitely creating a lot of game time for the players, right? That's one thing. We didn't want to obviously do it cheaply as we could to not feel like that. We looked into randomization and in the content that we have, right? Created for the base game, the monsters, the weapons. We didn't want to create new systems or new powers or things like that. We deliberately wanted to use everything people learned on the campaign. So having those elements, we just wanted to understand how we can put that together in a form of a new experience that's a bit different than the campaign. And we took, for me, I think I took inspirations from Hades, actually.
Okay.
When you select the boons every time, it feels fresh every time. It feels different, and I wanted to have something like that here. I felt like this may be a nice take, because then you can replay the arena, and you feel like it's really a different game when you start with different loadout and different upgrades, and you can experiment some more. It's not like the predefined path, so it's something for the players that already know the game that keeps it fresh. So I think it was there really since the beginning, basically. But I remember Hades being the main inspiration for that. We
Nice.
kind of have discussions regarding how many upgrades to give, how many weapons, and we need to balance that. So I think you get more weapons at the beginning, and then just to fill your loadout, to not just run around with two guns. I'm really happy, and and we've decided that this part, randomizing this part, what you're gonna get, can give you the option to replay the arena again and have a bit different experience.
Yeah, and if people are not used to using the revolver, they better get used to it quick, because if you are not using that in the first levels, you will have no ammo.
Yeah, exactly. That is also actually, I think, interesting. I feel like this is what Doom Eternal is doing. They kind of like force you to use all the tools, right? So we didn't want to do it to that level in the campaign, but here actually, yes, this is your tool. You have to work with everything you've got.
Yeah.
So this is for you to show how good you are at the game.
Two of the arenas are unique. I mean, they're set in campaign worlds, but they're uniquely designed. And one of them is actually a campaign arena, the one that has the hazard floor, the one that drops out into the grinding gears. Why did you decide to use that arena while you were creating two other arenas brand new? What made that arena stand out to you as something that should be included in survival mode?
I'm happy you haven't recognized the other two as the campaign arenas, but they are
Are they?
also yes. But the goal was always to
Huh.
redesign them as much as we can
Yeah, I
in
guess
terms
I
of
guess you.
adding new
Yeah.
platforms and elements from the
Yeah.
deceased dragon.
Okay, I guess yeah, I guess you just like you changed those
Mm,
ones so much that they didn't stand out to me as places I had already been. But the
yeah,
first arena, I guess just because it's a big rectangle, right? It's a big
and
rectangle with a floor that drops out. I'm like, oh, I remember this room. Okay,
yeah,
so that's interesting that they're actually all arenas from the campaign. I did good job on fooling me then.
yeah. The trapdoor is giving it away, right?
Yeah,
This is something you really remember, so it's hard to cover that. We wanted to use that. We actually were discussing if we should, and we picked actually just the biggest space we could get because we felt like on the on the end game, you just need more space for that speed. That our initial arenas are relatively small in the campaign. It gets interesting when it gets bigger, and we wanted to experiment with multiple floors and create again get back to that Quake 3 style of maps and go more into that direction. I feel like it's working. I'm really happy that you haven't recognized the other two.
yeah. Wow, you did
Um,
a great job on that. I don't know how I didn't. Wow, yeah, they feel really fresh.
Awesome. Yeah, the layout is different. It's like the environment around is the same, but what we did with the all the guts there, it's just you play it differently. It's actually I would say that this is great showcase of what you can do as a super experienced player in the late game, uh, which is I feel great because I feel like this I'm happy with the combat system we've created here. I'm really proud of that, and I believe that having a place where you can, push it to the max as a player, it's a great thing.
Yeah. Are you planning to add any more arenas, or is this like this is it?
There is no plans right now. We right now, as we're recording that, we're still focusing on the release of the definitive
Sure,
edition, and
sure.
then we need to see what's the response for that. As we always do, we were super happy with the after the release of the third part in March last year to look at the what the community is saying and what we need to really to do. So right now we're basically focusing on the release.
Cool. Well, it's really fun, man. I think this is definitely what the game has needed. It really makes it feel like a complete package with this, because you beat the campaign, you do it a few times, and hey, who doesn't want a survival mode to really test your skills? And is it endless, or is there like a final level, or because I've been playing it, but I've been playing it on hardcore difficulty, which I mean, WoW is really tough, and I think I got to like level 14 maybe, but yeah, how far does it go on?
I wonder if I should spoil it to you.
Oh, maybe yeah. If you don't want to,
Maybe I
no.
shouldn't. It's but over let's say on the general, I won't say how much waves there is for you
Okay.
to have the fun of discovering it, but we wanted to have a formal end and
Okay.
we say to the players, "Congratulations, you did it!"
Okay.
Right? But there is the opt-in option to just keep playing.
Oh.
That is, it has a twist. So you won't play forever, probably until you find a glitch that we should probably fix. But the idea is like we figure out that we would like to when you achieve that, then the game's really try to kill you.
It's already trying to kill you pretty hard, man. It gets insane after a while. It really
It
does.
may be after that mark when we congratulate you, it may not be so fair, let's say. But I think it's cool. It's a challenge on its own. It's a bit different, a small twist on the what's been going on since through the waves that you've been beating right now.
Well, it sounds like you're really happy with the product. As you should be. It's really good, and I hope the team feels proud about it too. And I hope the release, if it goes well, I'll be doing a video on it for when it launches to let people know, and I'll put this interview out the day after. So hopefully people have gotten to check it out and will enjoy all this conversation about it. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to add to the conversation before we wrap it up?
Um, I would like to thank you and your audience. Like we really were super happy as a team when you just launched your videos. We were super happy seeing kind of your response to our updates. Uh, like this is something this was something that we've been. I remember the situation when we were developing the difficulty overhaul, and your video came, and like week after or something like that, we had this patch that was on the same that fixed the same issues, let's say, with the difficulty, which was really nice to see, that understanding. So we were super happy seeing you playing the game, and showing that to more folks, and actually understanding our intentions behind that we felt a lot. So thank you for that. That was awesome. It helped us. It make us happy, the whole team.
Oh, that's oh man, that's awesome to hear. I'm really happy to hear that. Well, you're welcome. I believed in your game and I wanted to push it. I had stuff to say about it, and I'm glad that I was able to get it out to some more people. And you mentioned Hades. It's I think that game's going to go on to be very, very influential over the years, because your game and my other favorite shooter of last year, Deadlink, are both influenced in a way by Hades. You're talking about how it influenced your survival mode, and Deadlink, it influenced how they pick upgrades after every arena, and I don't know. That's a pretty interesting. I think you're going to see that a lot more. Hades is going to be very influential. But yeah, you guys and Deadlink have created some really, really interesting combat loops that I could just play all day. And congratulations on Shadow Warrior 3 and this update. And thanks for joining me here, and thanks for reaching out and being in contact with me. Since the game came out, it's been great.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure. Awesome experience. I really like that. Thank you, and for this interview. It was super comfortable.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it was
so
fun. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. This has been one of the best interviews I think we've had. Kuba, thank you for coming on, and everyone, if you don't have Shadow Warrior 3, make sure you get it with the definitive edition. If you played it a year ago and it didn't quite satisfy you, well, come back now. It's everything that you wanted it to be. It's one of the best games of last year, and it's even better now. So this is us saying goodbye. Goodbye.
goodbye.